And then when you're ready, please go ahead, Amandeep, and give us your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Bronson, for introducing me. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes,
okay.
Perfectly.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I am Amandeep. I am a postdoctorate fellow at QUT, Queensland University of Technology, and I'm working with Professor Prashant on printed electronics. So today I will, as the topic of my research is 2D nanomaterial-based synthesis. Basically, we try to develop our material from waste. So today I will focus on, So today I will focus on my research. So I started my career in QUT, in fact, in Australia in 2017, the same year AUCAOS Society started. And I attended my first seminar over there as well, which was in December in same year. I got a poster prize also there. So whole of my research is, part of my research is divided. I have divided into 3 subtopics. So we started with the synthesis of carbon dots from hairs, waste hair strands, and then we keep on growing and we put up devices and we investigated different devices. So first we will concentrate on carbon dots derived, how we have used the carbon dot to sense chloroform dissolved in water with the highest sensitivity. And then how we used these carbon dots to self-assemble to form a 2D emitting material, which we ultimately developed a flexible OLED from that. And then we used this same, and we kept on growing, and we are using now carbon dots to do the energy level engineering to improve the stability of different devices. So I will start with my first study. So that was, we derived carbon dots. So basically we used human hair strands. We got it from one of the, there was a nearest salon near QUT. We got the strands. Actually, Prashant got it for me. We got human hair strands. We tried different techniques, hot air oven, microwave. Initially, we was trying to increase their quantum yield by surface engineering, putting a ligands over it and see how the quantum yield is increasing, how the particle size are distributed, where in microwave reactors, we got a bigger particle. If you can see, this is around about, we got 8, the most of the particle size was distributed between 75 to 80 nanometer. But when we are using a hot air oven, a hydrothermal reactor in a octadecane, then we were getting a small particle distribution, a small particle size distribution as well. So the figure D and E shows the high resolution TEM of both the particles, where you can see the lattice fringe distance between both the cases. So actually the motivation started from, we did know that the pyridinic oxide group on the surface of carbon dot could be generated from the literature review, find that. And this pyridinic oxide, pyridinic and nitrogen has an important, what we found. So initially we thought that due to the resonance stabilization of this nitrogen in the ring, so there will be a positive charge will be generated over the ring. And since this trichlorocarbon chloroform has a small dipole moment, it can actually form a protective cover in water. It can come close to such carbon dots and it can form a protecting, they can stabilize it. Once this happens, normally what happens is the carbon dots are basically light emitting materials. They are fluorescent in nature when excited with the UV light. So what will happen? So if these chloroform will come around the carbon dots, they can stabilize the whole of the carbon system. Our initial studies also, so we did some computer simulation as well for different THM, methane. And I have shown for 2, but we have tried all that. And we found that in case of chloroform, because of its high dipole moment, its electron cloud doesn't overlap with the carbon core. We made a small core, and simulation studies were in line what we were thinking. But in case of other bromoform, we found that electron cloud is overlapping. The bonding is happening, so it is not going. When the actual bonding will happen, it will if we are the emission, that emission can go to non-radiative transformation. We want a radiative transition occurring more. So So with this initial studies, we designed that our carbon dots in octadecane, so that because normally what we choose the carbon human hair, which has a high content of nitrogen as well. So with the help of nitrogen and exposure in air with a limited time, we were able to create a pyridinic N oxide group. So this was evident in a higher resolution XPS of nitrogen 1s. When we were trying to fitting the curve, we found that we got a good amount of NO signal, pyridinic N oxide, over our carbon dots, which were formed in a hydrothermal reactor. But there was no NO group when we are forming this material in a microwave reactor. So then next, once we had the material and our motivation was that we tested the carbon dots sensing for a chloroform, and we found that yeah, they are showing a very high sensitivity of chloroform with background of other mixed salts as well, bromoform and other things. And to the date, we have shown into like in last to last year, we published these results where we are showing that we have a highest sensitivity of 3 ppb from this study. So once we have this, we moved on further. We tried to now we was thinking that actually our aim was to demonstrate these material into a devices. So my next aim was to update improve the crystallinity of the material, so that there can be a charge transport as well. Because when we need an active material, we need to have charge conductivity as well, as compared to the amorphous nature of material should be also preserved, because it helps in emission of the light. There should be some amorphous center as well. So we try to tune the material. We did try to find the best temperature and other condition, and we found that around about 240 degrees centigrade, the PL quantum zero was highest. What we can obtain was nearly 87%. So the next thing was that normally what happens when people synthesizes carbon dots, they emit at all the wavelengths, various wavelengths. We don't want excitation dependent emission, we want excitation independent emission. So what we did try was, we was trying to passivate all the surfaces. We don't want extra surfaces with which the emission they can be excited from other wavelength as well. So we did try we tried to passivate it with the long alkyl ligands mixed with the carbon dots, and we were successful in controlling the emission, as you can see in figure F. In figure E, if you see this is excitation dependent emission with 300 nanometer excitation wavelength, you are getting the black emission and so on. But with all, when you put a ligand over their surfaces and do the surface engineering, you will find that their excitation, and they are giving excitation independent emission. And at the same time, we did study the effect of linker on their fluorescence nature, whether the material is still fluorescent, it is not phosphorescent or there. So we investigated all that. So once we have this material, so the ligands play a very important role. So we were interested in self-assembly of this carbon dots on a simple spin coater initially. So we just by optimizing the spin coating conditions and the concentration, which was around 7 milligram per ml in a polymer PVK, which we used as electron transporting, a charge transporting material as well. So we dispersed this carbon dots in a PVK with a particular concentration. We were able to get them into a proper island structure with height 40 nanometer and approx 100 to 200 nanometer in length. And interestingly, what we found that when they are joining, the parameter, you can see an AFM of AFM image. So the image B is actually SEM and image C is AFM. So, and if you see image T, we found that the parameters, this is an AFM image with the adhesion profile. So we found that parameter of each carbon island, this is a 2D material, so is passivated, which helps in getting more emission in a solid state. What we found, if you see figure E, we found that a solid state emission, if you use carbon dots alone only, it has a very low emission. So quantum yield is too low. But when we were able to passivate, form island structure and passivate each island, the emission in solid state drastically increased, and we were very confident that such a material can work in devices as well. So we did measure the whole mobility and other things before trying this devices, trying this material into our devices. So this was the simple structure. We tried this carbon island in a light emitting diode. So we had a glass ITO, P.PSS was acting as a whole transporting layer, 20 nanometer. Normally, if you spin coat at a normal around 5,000 RPM, you will get around 20 nanometer. And then we dispersed to CD and PVK together. And then TBPI is electron transporting layer with aluminum doped with lithium fluoride to bring the work function down. So this is a simple device structure, and we were able to get a proper working device with a good stability. Figure C shows this luminescence and current density. We were getting around 700 candela per meter square, the emission, which is good for blue emitting layers emissions. And most importantly, this material was derived from waste strands. So we did try it. What we were interested in looking inside the devices. So we cut a lamina of this device's cross section, and we put it under a STM and a STM to see all the layers. You can see a STM image in E figure, and we did try a TEM image also. We loaded the same lamella into the TEM image to just study the inner structure of the devices. So you can clearly see an ITO layer, P.PSS, PVK, 2D islands, lithium fluoride, very small. It can't be seen, but it is actually there, and aluminum, and a high resolution TEM of the carbon dots layer as well. And you can see in this cross section over here on the right. So once this device was demonstrated, we were further interested to try, because of the stability of the material outside in an open air. So we were interested to design a flexible device as well. So we demonstrated a flexible device first time at QUT as well with the same material. So we did try to investigate this cross section, but TEM will destroy the flexible devices. So we did try the helium ion microscopy, if you can see figure F. So this is a complete devices, and we use helium ion microscope to investigate the layer, how they are in the devices itself. We can see an intact layer after working also, the layer was intact. And in figure C, you can see the comparison between electroluminescence and PL. There is only a small shift in electroluminescence, which may be due to the charge injection layers. And figure D represents the luminescence and current density of a flexible device, which is considerably low as compared to our flexible device. And we have a small current efficiency of around about 0.3 or 0.4. Sorry, 0.3. 0.22 exactly, yes. Further, this research was heavily covered by, because this was the first demonstration from a waste human hair, so we were largely covered by we got a lot of attention from various newspapers. So this is the lower right, you can see Prashant standing with the salon where we got our human hairs from. And it okay, so further moving on. After that, we had this. We further investigated if we can use this carbon dots to further improve the stability of other devices. So perovskite is very hot field, and perovskite devices have an issue of stability. So we tried to bring our carbon dots into that role. We synthesized cesium lead bromide perovskites, green emitting layer, and this is the carbon dots. Again, we have synthesized the same carbon dots. And So what we did is we developed a layer with carbon dots, and we developed a composite actually of carbon dots and the perovskites material, and we tried to spin coat them with a composite. And what we found that we were studying various effects is how the carbon dots and how with different concentration, how is the emission is being affected. Basically, as we know, that perovskites are a mixture of it's a salt basically, and if you investigate this in an XRD in figure A, if you can see that we found that if you crystal structure, if you look at the crystal structure, you'll find that the lead atoms at each crystal phase are exposed, which technically interacts with the because the lead atomic orbitals of lead basically forms a conduction band. So they are interacting with the carbon, and there is an energy exchange mechanism happening over there. Because as we increase the concentration of carbon dots, we found that there is a variation, the emission profile is also changing. And we did calculated its HOMO level from PESA. So this is a PESA data. Photoelectronic yield, and we investigated how the HOMO level is changing with the different carbon dots. And what we found is that with variation of with a different variation, a composite is formed below perovskites, and we were able to tune this layer, HOMO holes injection, as you can see in figure B. The current density in the device was considerably increased when we were using this composite layer, and we got a very good emission, green emission from device. So there is a comparison between PL and ES. So we found that there is maybe some charge transfer happening between the two layers, which is still we are investigating. We are trying to understand how it is happening, because there is the EL is a little broad, if you can see from below, as compared to the photo PL. But it was very interesting to see that the device stability increased considerably. We operated this device more than 150 hours, at least compared to 200 hours. And we found that after 200 hours, the emission was decreasing below 50%. So the device stability increased considerably by using this composite materials. So this was all about my research. We are further investigating. This is my future direction. So we are using carbon pillar for charge injections. So we have demonstrated that we can form a very long ordered array of carbon pillars on a given substrate, any substrate, under a normal condition, not at high temperature. So you can see the large ordered arrays of carbon pillars from figure A, B, C, and D at different scale. And there is below is an AFM of the same carbon pillars. We are also further investigating. I am trying to develop an instrument in our lab, with which we are trying to convert human hairs into a multi-watt carbon nanotubes. So we are developing. We are in a path to develop this device. Also, apart from that, we are working on prototype sensor development, one of my project. And we have also developed new hole transporting material from waste material. So this is very promising and transparent. We are currently writing a manuscript on waste. And also we are upscaling. We formed a moisture repellent carbon dots from waste. And we have demonstrated this in a recent publication in Journal of JMCA. And we are upscaling to, if we can say, we can upscale the material production, and we can cover whole the solar panel with a moisture repellent material, and which can improve the life of existing or new solar panels. So we are investigating that all as well. At the end, I would like to thank you, my Center of Material Science, for supporting me, Center of Waste Field from QUT, my supervisor, Prashant Sonar, and Professor Ken. Without their support, I couldn't do that all. And all my collaborators from Griffith, QUT, University of Newcastle, and many more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very, very interesting presentation, and obviously a lot of things there to talk about. We have time for some questions. I'll open up to see if anyone in our audience would like to ask some questions. Please just unmute your microphone. Go ahead, Paul. I see you've jumped right in.
I have, yes. It's all very interesting. So,
Paul.
hi. So there are different colored hair, red hair, black hair, brown hair, blonde. Do you find a difference in the quality of the 2D materials depending on hair color?
Yes, technically, and initially when we started our research, we used different types like Asian hairs, blonde hairs, and different. But at the later on stages, there was difficulties at that there may be a problem when you are getting a clearance for publication. So what we did is we randomized the sample. We mixed it with all different types of hair, what we were getting from shops from that salon. And in our one of the study, we demonstrated that if you randomize the sample, there is very small change in the final material what you are getting.
Okay. And so just related to that, I mean, there is hair, and then there is all the products that people put on their hair. Yes. So what sort of process do you go through to make sure that your hair is kind of native hair and is not Head and Shoulders or Vidal Sassoon?
Yes. Actually, when I started my research, I used my own hair and I was using some anti-dandruff shampoo, and there was a nitrogen signal in there. But we made sure we cleaned them with a normal circle of acetone, IPA, and all that before that. Before putting them into then I treated with a liquid nitrogen and ball mill them to make it a powder, normal powder, and then we treat the hairs. So we make sure that they washed, filtered, and everything before putting them into a reactor, so that any unaccounted thing doesn't go, which we don't know should not be going along with the hairs.
Do you know what is the elemental composition of human hair? I mean, is it pretty much just a hydrocarbon, or what's in there?
So basically it is a protein, a polymer. Nitrogen, carbon, oxygen are the main components. And I did read one book on hairs, but now I completely forgot. But yeah, it is a human polymer, a polymer, biopolymer, which mainly contains carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. That are the main content. And it further it depends upon you have what type of hairs, and there may be some sulfur as well, what we found as impurities, or we don't know where it come from, sulfur, and you can see a trace other elements. But what interestingly, we found that these trace elements are not affecting what properties we are interested in, like emission when we are considering it in, or when you see a moisture repelling agent when we are using it on our solar panels. So they are not affecting them much.
Yeah, just to kind of interrupt a little bit in Amandeep's conversation, Paul and I mean, when we took, I mean, the really intention is to utilize this natural biopolymer as a keratin, which is having a combination of amino acid and amine group. And I believe that this carbon nanostructures are getting doped with the nitrogen. That's what this interesting surface chemistry does a role for sensing, as well as some of these luminescence changes with respect to the putting different ligand on a carbon dots. But as Amandeep mentioned that, yeah, I mean, apart from carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, we could see some sulfur, and there are some disulfide bridges in proteins. So that's why when someone burns the hair, you see the unpleasant smell that the sulfur gets released. And apart from that, also we notice in some cases might be the silicone and all that could be, I don't know, related with some treatment to the hair, to shampoo, or I don't know. So we saw few other elements as well.
Yeah, silicone is coming from anti-dandruff shampoo.
Yeah, interesting. Do we have any other questions from anyone in the audience? If not, everyone, please join me in thanking Amandeep one more time. So excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Before we move on, I just have a message. Paul says he would like to make a quick comment.
Okay. Yes. So thanks very much, Bronson. I know people tend to run away quite quickly at the end of these, so I thought I'd get or put my piece in, or say my piece before we get to the second speaker. So apologies, speaker number 2. I'd just like to formally thank Bronson for all the effort he has put in this year to make sure that the AUCAOS seminar series has been running. I think it's been really fantastic. We've had lots of speakers from PhDs to ECRs, and we had a keynote speaker last month as well. And so that's been absolutely brilliant to keep the community together. We will be taking a break after this particular these two talks today, and we'll be in touch in the new year when we will recommence the seminar series. But the plan, if all goes well with the borders opening and everything else, is for us to meet in person next year. So do keep an eye out for the announcements, which will come in due course. But as I said, I just wanted to get that in. So if people feel that they want to run away before all the end of the questions to the second speaker, I've at least said my piece. So thanks again, Bronson, and thanks again, everyone, for attending. And a special thanks to all those people who have also contributed with talks. It's been really fantastic. So I shall now disappear, and Bronson can introduce the second speaker.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Paul, and thank you for your assistance as well with everything and running these things as well. So yeah, it's not just me; it's been a team effort from the whole committee, really. So thank you very much.